Before we begin, I thought it would be fun if everyone lets me know in the comments where they're watching this video from. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's start today's episode. In the shadowy world of secret military projects and advanced technology, the lines between reality and the unknown often blur. However, when the hacking collective Anonymous reveals information, people tend to pay attention. In a recent disclosure, Anonymous claimed that there has been a significant increase in sightings of green laser beams in the skies above the United States over the past 12 months. According to the group, these mysterious lights are not merely a spectacle, but could be indicative of a new type of military weapon being tested. The revelations have sparked intense speculation and concern about the implications of such technology and the secrecy surrounding its development. Over the past year, reports of green laser beams cutting through the night sky have become more frequent, particularly in remote areas and near military installations across the United States. Witnesses describe the lasers as intense, concentrated beams of light that appear suddenly, often moving quickly across the sky before vanishing just as abruptly. Unlike the more common red lasers used in various applications, these green lasers are said to be far more powerful and visible from great distances. Anonymous, known for its ability to access and expose classified information, claims to have uncovered documents and communication logs that suggest these green lasers are part of a secret military project. According to the group, the lasers are being tested as a potential new weapon, one that could revolutionize modern warfare. The group's revelations have led to widespread concern about the purpose and potential dangers of these tests, especially given the lack of transparency from the government and military officials. Green lasers are not new in the world of technology. They have been used in various fields, including astronomy, surveying, and even as pointers for presentations. However, the lasers reported by witnesses and detailed by Anonymous appear to be of a different magnitude entirely. The intensity, range, and precision of these lasers suggest that they are not designed for civilian applications, but rather for advanced military use. According to the information released by Anonymous, these lasers may be part of a directed energy weapon system. These use concentrated energy, such as lasers, to damage or destroy enemy targets without the need for conventional ammunition. The potential advantages of such weapons are significant. They can travel at the speed of light, are difficult to detect, and can target both airborne and ground-based threats with incredible accuracy. The green lasers being tested, according to Anonymous, could be capable of disabling enemy electronics, blinding sensors, or even causing physical damage to structures and vehicles. The color of the lasers is not just for show. Green lasers are more visible to the human eye and can be more easily tracked and measured, making them ideal for testing and development purposes. The possibility that the United States military is testing a new directed energy weapon raises several important questions and concerns. First and foremost is the issue of safety. If these lasers are as powerful as they appear to be, what are the risks to civilians who might inadvertently come into contact with them? There have already been reports of pilots and drivers being temporarily blinded by the lasers, which could lead to accidents or other unintended consequences. Furthermore, the development of such a weapon could have significant geopolitical implications. Directed energy weapons are seen as the next frontier in military technology, and the country that perfects them first could gain a substantial strategic advantage. This could lead to an arms race with other nations rushing to develop their own versions of the technology. The secrecy surrounding these tests also raises concerns about accountability and oversight. If the military is conducting tests that could potentially harm civilians or escalate tensions with other nations, the public has a right to know. The environmental impact of such tests is another area of concern. Directed energy weapons require vast amounts of energy to operate, and the long-term effects of deploying such technology on a large scale are unknown. The possibility that these tests could lead to unintended consequences, such as interference with communication systems or damage to the environment, cannot be ignored. The revelations by Anonymous have sparked a wave of public interest and concern. Many are demanding answers from the government and military about the nature and purpose of these tests. Some are calling for an immediate halt to the testing until more information is made available and the potential risks are fully understood. However, As is often the case with military projects, official responses have been limited and vague. The Department of Defense has neither confirmed nor denied the existence of the tests. And when pressed for information, officials have cited national security concerns as a reason for withholding details. This lack of transparency has only fueled speculation and mistrust among the public. Meanwhile, amateur researchers are proliferating, with some suggesting that the green lasers are part of a larger government effort to control the population or prepare for a new type of warfare. Others believe that the lasers could be connected to extraterrestrial activity or other phenomena that the government is attempting to cover up. While these theories may seem far-fetched, they reflect the deep-seated anxieties and uncertainties that arise when the government conducts secretive operations without public accountability. In recent months, residents across the United Kingdom have also reported a series of strange and unexplained sightings in the night sky. Bright green laser beams cutting through the darkness, descending from above, and sometimes even hitting the ground. These mysterious lights have been observed in various parts of the country, sparking intrigue, concern, and a flurry of speculation about their origin and purpose. While explanations range from advanced military technology to more benign causes, the phenomenon has left many wondering what exactly is happening in the skies above the UK. The first reports of green lasers in the sky began to surface in early 2024, with witnesses describing the beams as unusually bright and highly concentrated. Unlike typical laser pointers or light shows, these beams were visible from great distances and appeared to be emanating from an unknown source high above the ground. The most unsettling aspect of the sightings was the fact that many of the lasers seemed to be targeting specific areas on the ground, with some witnesses reporting that the beams moved methodically as if scanning the terrain. Sightings have been reported from various locations across the UK, including rural areas, small towns, and even the outskirts of major cities. The consistency of these reports, combined with the distinctive green color of the lasers, suggests that this is not an isolated incident, but part of a larger coordinated phenomenon. Some witnesses have even managed to capture the lasers on camera, providing visual evidence that has been shared widely on social media and analyzed by experts. As the sightings have continued, theories about the origin and purpose of the green lasers have proliferated. One of the most commonly suggested explanations is that the lasers are part of a new advanced military technology being tested by the UK government or its allies. The idea that the lasers could be connected to a directed energy weapon system has gained particular traction, especially given the increasing interest in such technology among global military powers. The sightings of green lasers have had a significant impact on the communities where they have been observed. For many residents, the sudden appearance of these lights has been both unsettling and fascinating. Some have expressed concerns about the potential dangers posed by the lasers, particularly if they are indeed connected to military tests or other high-risk activities. Others have been captivated by the mystery, sharing their experiences online and engaging in discussions about what the lasers might be. In some areas, local authorities have been inundated with reports from concerned citizens, prompting calls for investigations and official explanations. However, government agencies have remained largely silent on the issue, offering little information to assuage public fears. This lack of transparency has only fueled further speculation, and in some cases, mistrust of official institutions. The sightings have also attracted the attention of UFO enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists who have suggested that the lasers could be connected to a cover-up or a larger hidden agenda. While these ideas may not have widespread acceptance, they highlight the ways in which unexplained phenomena can tap into existing fears and anxieties, particularly in a world where technological advancements and government secrecy often go hand in hand. As the sightings of green lasers continue across the UK, there is a growing demand for answers. Whether the lasers are part of a military experiment, a surveillance operation, or something else entirely, the public has a right to know what is happening in their skies. The potential risks associated with these lasers, especially if they are hitting the ground, make it imperative that authorities provide clear and accurate information about their origin and purpose. Transparency is essential, not only for ensuring public safety, but also for maintaining trust between the government and its citizens. In a time when misinformation and conspiracy theories can spread rapidly, Providing credible explanations for unexplained phenomena is crucial for preventing fear and confusion. As of right now, the green lasers seen over the United Kingdom remain a mystery, one that has captured the attention of both the public and the media. Whether these lasers are a sign of advanced military technology, a new surveillance method, or something more mysterious, their presence has sparked widespread speculation and concern. Ranging from laser emissions to high-energy microwaves, they comprise a wide spectrum of technologies and implementations, each with its distinct strengths and complexities. Directed energy weapons are emerging as a pivotal advancement in modern defense and warfare strategies, marking a significant departure from traditional arsenal. These innovative armaments harness focused energy to neutralize or dismantle targets with unparalleled accuracy and operational efficiency. Laser-based weapons stand out as a key category of directed energy weapons, functioning through the emission of highly focused beams of coherent light energy. These advanced laser systems find application across diverse platforms, such as ground-based installations, airborne vehicles, and even space-based satellites. Through the precise targeting of hostile assets with intense energy bursts, laser weapons possess the capability to neutralize or eliminate a broad spectrum of threats, including missiles, aircraft, unmanned aerial vehicles, and surface-to-air defenses. With their ability to deliver concentrated energy to designated targets with pinpoint accuracy, these weapons serve as formidable tools in modern warfare, offering a strategic advantage in countering evolving security challenges. Essentially, laser-based weapons represent a cutting-edge technology that continues to redefine the landscape of defense capabilities and military strategies. Laser weapons possess a significant advantage in terms of their swiftness and precision, enabling quick target engagement with minimal unintended harm when juxtaposed with traditional munitions. Furthermore, lasers boast a seamless supply of ammunition deriving energy from internal power sources or external options like solar panels or batteries. This inherent feature of sustainability renders them highly appealing for prolonged operations and missions, as they can function continuously without the need for frequent resupply. Laser technology's capability to deliver accurate and efficient strikes while maintaining operational endurance sets them apart as a promising choice for various military applications and scenarios where precision and reliability are paramount. High-powered microwave weapons form a distinct subset within the realm of directed energy weapons. These advanced technological systems utilize electromagnetic radiation within the microwave frequency spectrum to disrupt or incapacitate electronic systems and components. High-powered microwave weapons possess the capability to impede the proper functioning of various critical infrastructure elements, such as communication systems, radar arrays, computer networks, and more. By employing these weapons, enemy assets can be effectively nullified without inflicting any physical harm, underscoring the strategic advantage of these non-destructive yet highly impactful tools in modern warfare. High-power microwave weapons have the capability to serve in non-lethal capacities, including tasks like managing crowds and protecting perimeters accomplished through the emission of electromagnetic energy pulses. These pulses are designed to discourage or incapacitate opponents without inflicting lasting injuries. The adaptability of such weapons renders them indispensable for armed forces and law enforcement bodies aiming to address threats while minimizing the occurrence of casualties and collateral harm. This multifunctional nature broadens their utility, allowing them to be applied in diverse scenarios requiring a nuanced approach to conflict resolution. Despite the promising capabilities that directed energy weapons offer, they come with a host of complex technical and operational obstacles that require resolution to ensure their effective implementation and usage. A critical issue that arises is the effective management of thermal impacts caused by the powerful energy beams, leading to potential overheating and harm to the weapon system itself. To overcome this challenge, engineers and designers must devise durable cooling mechanisms and materials that can endure the demands of continuous operation in high-energy environments. This necessitates the development of advanced cooling systems and materials that can effectively dissipate heat and protect the integrity of the systems, enabling them to function optimally even under extreme conditions. Moving on to the next mystery. Anonymous is a decentralized international network of activists and hackers recognized for their digital activism and online operations. Since emerging in the early 2000s, the group has frequently drawn media and public attention through high-profile cyberattacks and participation in various social and political movements. Rooted in the ideology of hacktivism, Anonymous merges hacking expertise with activism to challenge authority, expose perceived injustices, and defend freedom of speech. One of their most notable methods is the distributed denial of service (DDoS) attack, where they flood a target website's servers with traffic, causing temporary disruptions. Despite their reputation for disruptive actions, Anonymous also champions online privacy and free expression. They have actively opposed internet censorship, government surveillance, and corporate exploitation through various campaigns. In recent days, hacking groups like Anonymous Sudan have threatened to launch a potentially severe attack on the European financial system. Their primary focus is the SWIFT International Communications Network, with several members warning that such an attack could have far-reaching consequences. A recently published video shows the group claiming that their actions are in retaliation against Europe for its involvement in recent conflicts. While security experts consider a large-scale attack unlikely, they advise financial institutions to stay alert, as some of these groups have a history of executing powerful distributed denial of service (DDoS) attacks. Anonymous Sudan, an offshoot of the larger Anonymous Hacktivist Collective, has shared multiple warnings via Telegram and video messages about an impending assault on the European banking sector. The post also hinted at a possible attack on the U.S. Federal Reserve. In the video, the speaker follows the typical Anonymous style, wearing a Guy Fawkes mask and using voice distortion. They emphasize the significant influence of the global banking system. A key challenge with Anonymous is its decentralized nature. Anyone can participate, and not all members need to agree on the group's motives. As a result, in recent years, Anonymous has gained a reputation for politically driven cyber operations, including issuing threats against various institutions. The video provides an overview of an upcoming attack, highlighting the knowledge and skills of the group in relation to the European banking system. One of the most notable incidents associated with Anonymous was the Operation Payback campaign in 2010. This campaign targeted organizations that were perceived as threats to internet freedom, such as the Motion Picture Association of America and the Recording Industry Association of America. Through distributed denial of service attacks and other methods, Anonymous disrupted the online presence of these organizations as a form of protest against their perceived infringement on digital rights. Another significant event was the 2011 collaboration between Anonymous and WikiLeaks. Anonymous launched Operation Avenge Assange in response to the arrest of Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. They targeted various websites, including those of payment service providers and government agencies, in retaliation for their actions against Assange. This collaboration highlighted the power of decentralized activism and the ability of Anonymous to mobilize its global network of supporters. However, the decentralized nature of Anonymous also means that anyone can claim affiliation and carry out actions in the name of the collective. This has led to controversy and internal debates within the group regarding the legitimacy of certain operations. Some argue that it dilutes the group's message and allows for malicious actors to exploit the Anonymous brand for personal gain or nefarious purposes. In recent years, Anonymous has continued to make headlines with their involvement in various causes, such as the global protest movements like Occupy Wall Street. They have also targeted extremist groups, exposing their online activities and identities. Through their actions, Anonymous has demonstrated the potential of online collective action in affecting change and holding powerful entities accountable. As of right now, the group has made themselves a prominent and influential collective of activists and hackers who have made a significant impact on the digital landscape. They have challenged authority, exposed corruption, and promoted online freedom of expression. While their actions have sometimes been controversial and their methods debated, there is no denying the role they have played in shaping online activism and bringing attention to social and political issues. Some members of Anonymous have been critical of current events happening in the world right now, leading to certain accounts being banned. The hacking group Anonymous has been a subject of debate and controversy due to their activities and methods. Whether they are perceived as good or bad largely depends on one's perspective and the specific actions being considered. One of the main arguments in favor of Anonymous is their role as digital activists and whistleblowers. They have been involved in exposing corruption, advocating for online privacy and freedom of expression, and challenging oppressive systems. Their actions have shed light on issues that may have otherwise remained hidden, sparking important conversations and promoting transparency. Anonymous has played a significant role in amplifying the voices of marginalized communities and shedding light on social and political injustices. Moreover, Anonymous has used its skills to target and disrupt organizations and individuals that are perceived as oppressive or engaged in unethical practices. They have targeted entities such as oppressive governments, hate groups, and corporations involved in shady activities. In some cases, they have successfully disrupted the operations of these organizations, forcing them to reconsider their actions. Supporters argue that such interventions serve as a form of direct action against those who abuse their power and harm others. Additionally, Anonymous has been credited with promoting online activism and the idea that anyone can make a difference. By operating in a decentralized manner, they have empowered individuals to stand up against injustice and express dissent. Anonymous has inspired others to take action and heightened awareness of digital rights and freedoms. In this sense, they are often viewed as a catalyst for change, sparking discussions and motivating individuals to stand up for their beliefs. However, critics argue that their methods frequently involve illegal activities that undermine the principles of law and order. Their use of hacking techniques, such as distributed denial of service (DDoS) attacks, can disrupt legitimate services and unintentionally harm innocent individuals. This raises ethical concerns about their approach and the unintended consequences of their actions. Additionally, the group's lack of accountability allows malicious actors to exploit the anonymous name for personal gain or to further their own agendas. Critics contend that this weakens the collective's credibility and makes it difficult to distinguish between genuine activism and harmful intent. There are also concerns about indiscriminate targeting and unintended damage. While Anonymous may operate with noble intentions, their actions can sometimes impact innocent individuals or organizations unrelated to the issues they seek to address. The absence of centralized control and oversight makes it challenging to ensure that their efforts remain precise and proportionate. As of right now, the assessment of whether Anonymous is good or bad is subjective and depends on one's perspective. Supporters argue that their actions serve as a means to expose corruption, promote transparency, and advocate for online freedom. They view Anonymous as a force for change and as champions of digital activism. Critics, on the other hand, raise concerns about the legality of their actions, potential collateral damage, and the lack of accountability within the group. It is important to critically examine the motivations, methods, and impact of Anonymous to form an informed opinion about their activities and their role in the digital landscape. Cybersecurity and cybercrime have become significant issues in today's digital age with numerous financial and societal implications. The financial costs associated with cybersecurity measures and the economic impact of cybercrime are substantial. To begin, it is important to understand that the field of cybersecurity encompasses various aspects, including technology, personnel, infrastructure, and policy. Organizations and governments around the world allocate significant resources to protect their digital assets and infrastructure from cyber threats. According to various reports, the global spending on cybersecurity has been steadily increasing in recent years. In 2020, the global expenditure on cybersecurity was estimated to be around $145 billion. This figure includes investments made by both public and private sectors, covering areas such as network security, endpoint protection, data encryption, threat intelligence, and incident response. It is worth noting that this estimate does not capture the full extent of cybersecurity investments, as many organizations also allocate significant internal resources to develop and maintain their cybersecurity capabilities. However, while cybersecurity expenditures are substantial, the costs of cybercrime continue to rise and pose a significant financial burden. Cybercrime involves various illicit activities conducted through digital means, such as hacking, data breaches, identity theft, financial fraud, and ransomware attacks. The financial losses resulting from cybercrime are staggering. impacting both businesses and individuals. Estimating the precise costs of cybercrime is challenging due to underreporting, varying methodologies, and the evolving nature of cyber threats. However, studies and reports provide valuable insights into the magnitude of the problem. According to one estimate, the global cost of cybercrime in 2020 reached $1 trillion. This figure includes direct financial losses, such as stolen funds and monetary damages, as well as indirect costs, such as recovery efforts, reputation damage, and productivity losses. It is important to highlight that the costs associated with cybercrime extend beyond immediate financial losses. Cyber attacks can have long-lasting consequences on businesses and individuals, including legal implications, regulatory penalties, and loss of customer trust. Moreover, cybercrime can disrupt critical infrastructure, impact national security, and undermine economic stability. To counter the growing threat of cybercrime, governments, organizations, and individuals are investing significant resources in cybersecurity measures. The goal is to develop robust defenses, enhance incident response capabilities, and promote cybersecurity awareness and education. Governments around the world are allocating budgets to strengthen their cybersecurity infrastructure and establish frameworks and regulations to combat cyber threats. Beyond government investments, organizations are allocating significant resources to fortify their systems and safeguard sensitive data. These efforts include adopting advanced security technologies, conducting employee training programs, performing security audits, and partnering with cybersecurity firms. The private sector, particularly industries like finance, healthcare, and technology, plays a vital role in driving cybersecurity innovation and establishing best practices. While the billions spent on cybersecurity reflect a strong commitment to protecting digital assets, it is important to acknowledge that cybersecurity is a continuous challenge. As cyber threats grow more advanced, ongoing investments and improvements in security measures remain essential. Furthermore, the financial impact of cybercrime is expected to escalate as cybercriminals leverage emerging technologies and exploit new vulnerabilities. Moving on to the next mystery. The enigmatic medieval prophecy of Saint Malachy has intrigued religious scholars and prophecy enthusiasts for centuries, primarily due to its chilling claim that the final pope is near. If proven true, it could signify that the world stands on the verge of a monumental upheaval. Known as the Prophecy of the Popes, this collection consists of 112 cryptic Latin phrases, each believed to correspond to a pope, beginning with Celestine II in November and culminating in a final figure ominously called Peter the Roman. With Pope Francis potentially fulfilling the last prediction, many speculate that we are witnessing the final era of the papacy. The prophecy's origins trace back to Saint Malachy, a 12th century Irish bishop and saint. According to legend, while visiting Rome in November, he experienced a divine vision that revealed the entire succession of future popes. He recorded their reigns using symbolic mottos, which he later presented to Pope Innocent II before the document mysteriously disappeared for centuries. The prophecy resurfaced in 1595 when a Benedictine monk named Arnold Wyon published it in his book Lignum Vitae. Many researchers have pointed out that the descriptions of popes prior to the document's publication appear strikingly accurate, while the mottos following its rediscovery become more ambiguous. The most unsettling part of the prophecy concerns the final pope referred to as Petrus Romanus or Peter the Roman. According to the prophecy, this pope will lead the Catholic Church through an era of great tribulation. The text suggests that during his reign, the city of Rome, the city of 7 hills, will be destroyed and divine judgment will be rendered. The prophecy implies that the Church will face immense persecution, corruption, and possibly even its downfall. Some believe Pope Francis, as the current leader of the Church, could be this final pope. Others speculate that his successor will be the one to fulfill the apocalyptic vision. The idea that Pope Francis fits the prophecy has fueled much debate. Although he does not bear the name Peter, some theorists argue that his humble reformist approach and his focus on the poor align with the symbolic meaning behind Peter the Roman. Additionally, Pope Francis' Argentinian heritage has ties to Italy, as his parents were Italian immigrants, potentially linking him to the Roman aspect of the prophecy. With the Catholic Church grappling with internal divisions, scandals, and waning influence in various parts of the world. Some interpret these challenges as signs of the Great Tribulation foretold in the prophecy. Despite its intriguing connections, the prophecy of the popes has been widely dismissed by historians and theologians as a likely forgery. Some scholars believe it was created in 1590 to sway the election of Pope Gregory XIV. They note that descriptions of popes before this date are strikingly detailed, whereas those afterward become increasingly vague and open to broad interpretation. The Vatican has never officially endorsed the prophecy, and many within the Church regard it as a pious legend rather than a credible revelation. Yet, regardless of its authenticity, the prophecy continues to captivate those who believe in its predictions. Whether it is a genuine forewarning of the end times or simply a historical curiosity, its influence on discussions about the Catholic Church's future remains significant. If Pope Francis or his successor truly marks the end of the papal lineage, the world could be on the cusp of an extraordinary transformation. Until then, the mystery of St. Malachy's prophecy persists, leaving many to wonder whether the Catholic Church is approaching its final chapter. Moving on to the next mystery. The discovery of an underwater pyramid in the Azores stands as one of the most fascinating and debated findings in recent years. While pyramids exist across the globe, their above-ground counterparts already spark curiosity, but those hidden beneath the ocean's depths invite even greater speculation. The alleged discovery took place off the coast of Terceira and São Miguel in the Azores. Diocleciano Silva, the man credited with the find, was fishing when his ship's bathymetric equipment detected something unusual. His sonar readings revealed what seemed to be a perfectly geometric structure beneath the waves, leaving him astonished by the unexpected sight. Upon closer examination, Silva noted that the formation was distinctly pyramid-shaped. What made the discovery even more extraordinary was its precise alignment with the cardinal points, similar to the Great Pyramids of Giza in Egypt. In an interview with the Portuguese news site, Terra, Silva described how the pyramid's vertices were aligned precisely to the north and south, reinforcing the idea that it was not a naturally occurring formation. Despite the excitement surrounding the find, the pyramid has not been thoroughly investigated. Estimates place its age between 32,000 years old, dating back to the last ice age. However, the Portuguese Navy dismissed the claim, stating that historical sonar data suggested the structure was merely a seamount, a natural underwater formation rather than a man-made pyramid. No official research teams have conducted an in-depth investigation at the site to verify the nature of the structure. Admiral Fernando Perez, head of the maritime zone of the Azores, stated that there is not enough information to determine conclusively whether the formation is artificial or natural. He also noted that deploying probes to investigate the site at the time would have been impractical and could pose a risk to navigation. According to Perez, the Navy has not dismissed the possibility that the structure resulted from volcanic activity, creating a landform that merely resembles a pyramid. Despite these explanations, no comprehensive geological study has been conducted, and further research into the site has been abandoned. Adding to the mystery is the absence of any known ancient civilizations in the region with a history of pyramid construction. However, subsequent archaeological discoveries in the Azores have revealed megalithic structures, Carthaginian sanctuaries, cave art, and even Roman-era inscriptions, suggesting a far richer and more complex history than previously believed. Given the lack of official interest and the Navy's dismissive stance, many consider the structure to be an unresolved enigma. Some researchers speculate that bureaucratic or political factors may have influenced the decision to halt further investigations. Whether the formation is a natural geological feature or evidence of an ancient civilization submerged beneath the ocean, the Azores underwater pyramid remains a fascinating mystery that has yet to be fully explored. Moving on to the next mystery. The town of Racine, Wisconsin, was shaken when Derby Wagner Richardson's body was found near her workplace. The pressing question on everyone's mind was, who could have committed such a violent act, and why? While many residents had their suspicions, the perpetrator remained at large. This man had faced multiple accusations of battery and abuse in the past, but had never been convicted. How many more lives would be endangered before authorities took action to stop him? Ruth Elaine Wagner, originally from Waterstown Township in Blue River, Wisconsin, grew up in Boscobel, where her family settled. She spent her childhood on a farm in an area famously known as Wisconsin's turkey capital. Ruth married her high school sweetheart, Robert Lindner, and together they had 2 children, Deborah and Byron. Deborah, born on May 2, 1958, in Boscobel, was especially loved and adored by her grandparents, Bertha and Harry Wagner. Derby, a nickname lovingly given to Deborah by her grandparents, became an integral part of her identity. Born just a year after her teenage parents' wedding, Derby faced early hardships. With her father, Robert Lindner, serving in the Army, the family moved frequently, making it difficult for her to feel a sense of stability. It wasn't until she was nearly 9 years old that she was finally able to establish lasting friendships. In May 1967, following a difficult divorce from Robert Lindner, Derby's mother, Ruth Wagner, decided to settle in Madison. For years, Ruth remained single, focusing entirely on raising her children. However, in 1974, she found love again and married James Erickson. The divorce had a deep effect on Derby, who, at 14, chose to run away from home. Ultimately, Ruth's second marriage also ended in divorce, and in 1986, she remarried once more. Derby had no way of knowing this since she was already busy with her own life. Douglas Coppin stepped into her mother's life, and Derby had stepbrothers Daniel and Alan Coppin. She had a baby sister, Gina Coppin, as well. Her family had grown, but she felt lonely and left out. She needed to build another life as she felt abandoned by her mother. 2 years after running away from home, Derby walked into a bar in Racine, where she met Fred Wagner Richardson. Much like an unfortunate cliché, she quickly became infatuated with him. At 30 years old, Fred had a certain charm, and his past, which included joining the U.S. Army under a false name, intrigued the impressionable teenager. What she did not know was this man was bad news. He had a long record of misconduct and felonies in the Army. During his time in the military, he allegedly leaped out of the bushes assaulting and robbing a man. This led to a prison term and a dishonorable discharge. Following his move to Racine, he acquired 2 additional robbery convictions. Fred served only a portion of his 15-year sentence, and his freedom was a consequence of the criminal justice system's flaws, where criminals can sometimes walk free due to technicalities. After his release from Leavenworth Prison, he chose to settle in Racine, a typical industrial town that offered the opportunities he was seeking. He opened up a bar where he met Derby, who was then 16 years old. Fred Wagner was smart. He might have been a career criminal, but by swindling and wit, he could own a few rental properties around the town. They consisted of low-income housing units. He had a reputation for being ruthless in his business dealings and in his personal relationships. He was all about facts and very cold when it came to money. Fred gave her work as a bar dancer. Still a minor, she faked her way for years, dancing for tips. She did not know how to protect herself, and this was the first job that paid her enough to live slightly more comfortably than on the streets. Being a minor, she could not legally be paid, so Fred took advantage of this fact and exploited her. Since he had rental properties, he gave her some shelter as well in exchange for her services. He managed to have control over her from the very beginning. She saw him as her savior while he was just using her. Derby and Fred got married in 1979. They went on to have 2 babies, August Marie and Joy, born in 1980 and 1984. By now, Derby had introduced her family to her mother Ruth. Ruth did not approve of Fred from the get-go. Over time, Fred became more and more dominating in the marriage. Several of Derby's acquaintances and colleagues knew about the strain in the couple's relationship. After the initial honeymoon period, Derby quickly realized she was trapped in an abusive marriage. Fred was much too aggressive when he was angry and was exceedingly controlling. Since she was a teenager when she married him, she endured the abuse until she could build up her own strength. Her friend and colleague, Kelly Williams Cherry, would often babysit the couple's young girls. Kelly was among the people whom Derby confided in about the mistreatment she endured from Fred. In June 1986, Derby gathered the courage to walk out on Fred. She ran away after enduring a rocky marriage for several years. Derby was also quick about legal proceedings after being advised by friends and lawyers. Despite Fred's aggressive response, she stayed her ground and did not budge. She initiated divorce proceedings in December 1986. The couple shared significant real estate assets in Racine, which needed to be divided. Fred faced the prospect of losing a considerable portion of his earnings. This included an alleged 50% of the properties and 25% of rental income amounting to an estimated $250,000. Derby could not bear the violence any longer and was terrified that Fred was on the brink of harming her. He was not one to stay quiet in money matters. Things got ugly very fast. Since it was all still very fresh, Derby was not sure how the custody arrangement was going to be. So she agreed to let Fred take the girls every other weekend. But Fred was vindictive. He had something else in mind. On January 21st, 1987, Derby was preparing to send the girls off to their father. Fred showed up and beat Derby in front of the little girls, 7 years old. They were scared out of their little minds. He strangled Derby till she fainted. 5 days later, she filed a temporary restraining order against him. He was also convicted of battery a few weeks later. Things were escalating fast. She knew she had to get away and save her life. Derby was working very hard to turn her life around. She was working very hard to provide a good life for her girls. She was only 28 years old, so she had a lot she could plan for her future. Derby held down a lot of jobs. She served as a secretary at the Visiting Nurse Association of Kenosha and worked as a security guard for Guardian Protective Services. She also acted as a fitness counselor at the Racine YWCA over the weekends. She had recently applied for the role of Deputy Sheriff of Racine County. She wanted to work for Racine County Sheriff's Office and aspired to become part of law enforcement one day. She wanted to help teenagers that were caught in helpless situations, perhaps also help women out of abusive marriages. On March 21st, 1987, Derby, Fred, and their attorneys met for a discussion that left Derby feeling deeply unsettled, as though her life was in jeopardy. Her attorney shared her concerns and promptly contacted the police to request protection on her behalf. Barb Smith, a victim witness specialist at the Racine County District Attorney's Office, was responsible for guiding victims through the legal process. She clearly recalled assisting Derby when she applied for a temporary restraining order. Smith explained that this was a time when domestic violence cases did not require mandatory arrests, meaning officers had the discretion to decide whether to take an alleged abuser into custody. In 1987, victims were required to physically go to a police station to file a criminal complaint. When Derby reported being assaulted, obtaining a temporary restraining order was a separate, additional step. Smith voiced her frustration with the limitations of these orders. She described them as largely ineffective and often igniting the situation. She recalled advising victims, "This is the most dangerous time for you." She emphasized that the restraining order could escalate existing violence. As Derby left, Smith could vividly remember her saying, "It does not really matter. He is going to destroy me anyway." In that particular meeting on March 21st, the pair were dividing multiple rental properties that they owned together, including rental income. Reportedly, Fred cried and said, "I am very hurt. I am very hurt." Fred Wagner Richardson pointed a threatening finger at her and said, "I do not like being hurt." He was incredibly upset that he would lose money from his rental properties as a result of the divorce. Derby worked as a night shift security guard at Steiberg Engineering, 1600 Gold Street. She patrolled the inside of the locked building surrounded by a fence topped with barbed wire. As usual, on the evening of March 21st, 1987, she left her girls with Kelly, her friend who babysits her children. Derby would always make her promise that if Fred ever showed up, she would not let him near her girls. Kelly was the only one she trusted with her girls as she went off to do multiple jobs to make ends meet. This was about 12 hours after her hair-raising meeting with her soon-to-be ex-husband. Despite being emotionally shaken, Derby had to go on. Derby usually checked in with her firm at 1 a.m. She failed to do so that night. The firm grew concerned when they realized she was not responding and was nowhere to be seen. The management of Steiberg Engineering called authorities around 1:30 a.m. when they could not locate her. Investigator Al Felian responded to the scene that morning in his capacity as a patrolman. Officers proceeded to Stuyberg and initiated a search for her and her Pontiac Sunbird, but they were unsuccessful in locating her. 7 hours later, around 8 a.m., an officer spotted Derby's car. It was parked in an alley at 1546 Laird Avenue, just north of Steiberg Engineering. This was all fine, except for one unsettling detail. Blood was dripping from the drainage holes in the trunk of her car. The blood ran down the pavement. Inside the trunk, police recovered Derby's lifeless body. She was completely naked and her mouth had been gagged with white duct tape. Her throat and wrists had been viciously slashed, with such force that she was nearly decapitated. The severity of her neck wounds revealed the brutality of the attack. Over the next 24 hours, her clothing was found scattered along the street. Her tan uniform, security badge, a shoulder patch from her uniform, and a brown shoe were among the recovered items. A resident of Island Avenue also discovered some of her papers and identification. In the early morning hours of the following day, a newspaper carrier came across her appointment book near Spring Street and Highway H. Investigators later recovered a pair of black and red bolt cutters at the crime scene. While DNA analysis was not widely used at the time, all evidence was carefully preserved following standard procedures. The medical examiner uncovered unsettling details that helped piece together the sequence of events. However, one fact stood out. Derby still had all her jewelry on, ruling out robbery as a possible motive. That was ruled out as a motive. There was also no evidence of assault. A pathologist carried out a thorough examination. He confirmed that the injury to Derby's head was caused by bolt cutters. Investigators discovered that the suspect had entered the Steiberg engineering property by cutting a section of the chain-link fence along its east side. Crime scene photographs revealed a shoe print on the property with a pointed toe resembling a cowboy boot. This matched the footwear worn by someone she knew, as investigators later learned. Derby had a routine of bringing her children's clothes to work for folding. She often parked her car by the lunchroom door to easily carry the laundry basket back and forth. So the perpetrator was waiting for her and attacked her while Derby made one of her trips. Her jacket was found with inside-out sleeves. An examination revealed that someone had attempted to grab Derby from behind. She managed to squirm away and flee towards the nearby office as marks on the door indicated that Derby locked herself inside. They could see denim marks on the door. It looked as if someone repeatedly pushed against the door with their shoulder, wearing a denim jacket. The assailant struck her unconscious, then proceeded to tape her mouth with white duct tape. Then she was transported to the trunk of her car. The presence of duct tape suggested premeditation. According to experts, Derby's personal items were scattered around town to mislead investigators. It seemed plausible that the perpetrator feared becoming the prime suspect. Investigators deduced that the assailant drove Derby to another location where she was stripped and subsequently lost her life. He then drove the car back to her workplace, perhaps because the perpetrator needed to retrieve their own vehicle. This was vengeance, a hateful crime against Derby. So 3 things were certain. Number 1, the perpetrator was probably someone with a personal vendetta against Derby. Number 2, it was someone she knew because they were familiar with her workplace routine. And number 3, Derby had struggled and fought till the end. A relative realized that the black and red bolt cutters and evidence belonged to none other than Fred Wagner Richardson. A tip directed the police's attention to a vehicle resembling Derby's. It was spotted near Fred's housing property on State Street that fateful night. Witnesses recalled seeing someone loading an object into the trunk, a large object like maybe a rolled-up carpet. Acting swiftly, law enforcement executed a search warrant at the location, but they struggled to gather enough evidence to charge her ex with the slaying. Throughout, Fred steadfastly maintained his innocence. During the investigation into the case, authorities recovered evidence from both Steiberg Engineering and the vicinity where Derby's car was located. An RPD officer on night duty reported sighting a vehicle similar to Derby's parked at the rear service door of 1212 State Street around 3 a.m. The property was under the ownership of Fred Richardson. Residents of the property informed the police that the basement and rear door where the car was parked were solely used by the property owner. None of the renters had keys or access to that part of the property. They recovered a sales receipt for red bolt cutters, the same type found on the crime scene. Fred had made some unusual comments to his friends. A lot of them seemed made up and would turn out to be untrue as officers interviewed various witnesses and friends. He allegedly told a friend that he was too busy to make plans over the weekend because his children were going to spend the weekend with him. It was Derby's turn to have the children that weekend, so it did not make sense for him to lie about it. What was he trying to hide? When another friend wanted to meet up, he said he was sick in bed all weekend. Brian Linder, Derby's brother, insisted Fred was the only one who would want to harm his sister. Ruth Wagner, her mother, and all of her loved ones repeatedly asked the police to investigate Fred. The tragedy took a toll on Derby's mother. Ruth had been looking forward to Derby's independence. She had finally walked out of an abusive marriage and was going to progress in life. Now her granddaughters were left without a loving mother. And most frustratingly, the man she knew was behind her demise was walking free. Initially, Ruth took in the two little girls, but then Fred fought for them. After a 2-year-long bitter custody battle, he won custody of his daughters. Not one to sit around helplessly, Ruth became an advocate for victims' rights legislation in Wisconsin. She got busy working as an accountant, realtor, and even a prison guard. From an office manager to a tax collector for the state, she had a diverse experience. She did everything so she did not have to face the pain of losing her daughter. She regularly urged the police to work on her daughter's case and solve it somehow. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and finally, the months gave way to years. A decade after the tragic discovery in the industrial alley, the case remained unsolved. Her mother held a 10-year anniversary in hopes of motivating the police. Each time there was publicity about her daughter's case, the police department got calls and some faint leads. To boost the visibility of the investigation, Ruth organized a public vigil. It took place in the alley where her daughter's body was discovered. The event was scheduled for 6 p.m. on a Saturday in the 1500 block of Laird Avenue. She chose a weekend so that a maximum number of people would show up. During the vigil, some attendees would recite writings about Derby. Others would be encouraged to share their memories of her. Ruth also mentioned that a balloon release would be included as part of the vigil. Time had helped Ruth come to terms with the tragic reality of her daughter's final moments. But she still felt a pang of pain whenever the well-intentioned but perhaps ill-considered saying, "Life goes on," was mentioned. Ruth remarked the following: "Yes, life goes on, but not as we intended. I think about her every day. I still miss her every day." She struggled with a profound and enduring sadness stemming from her inability to share her life with a daughter. Derby was headstrong, independent, and dedicated to providing a better life for her two daughters. Ruth hoped that the publicity of the vigil could spark a memory. Maybe someone would see Derby's picture on the TV and remember who she was. Or perhaps they had seen Fred. Maybe, just maybe, someone would come out with information. For the Racine Police Department, it was an embarrassingly open secret. They knew Fred was a possible suspect, but their hands were tied. By then, Fred had moved out of Racine. He settled in Southwest Philippines, Consolation, Cebu. He married a woman named Lola. His daughters grew up there, and he lived a content life. Over the years, he had more children and eventually became a grandfather. One of his grandchildren would have been Derby's own. However, August Murray's daughter never had the chance to know her loving grandmother and remained distant from her great-grandmother, Ruth. Through his attorney, Domingo Cruz, Fred repeatedly denied any involvement in the case. Cruz dismissed the police's focus on Fred, arguing that it was driven by a desperate need to make an arrest. Throughout the investigation, Cruz continued to defend Fred, criticizing law enforcement for fixating on his client, while overlooking other potential leads that might have led to the actual perpetrator. Meanwhile, Derby's teenage daughters were growing up without both their mother and Ruth, knowing only Lola and Fred. They firmly believed their father had been unfairly targeted. Ruth retired at the age of 69 and continued to volunteer and attend support groups. She passed away in 2022 with Derby's case unresolved, but she had expressed her wishes that those who attended her funeral service would wear bright colors or their favorite colors. She did not want flowers. Instead, she urged everyone to make donations to domestic abuse intervention services in Madison, as well as the Women's Resource Center and Bethany Apartments in Racine. In a way, losing Derby shaped her life to be that of a voice for the helpless. But even after she was gone, the sinister words of Fred would be stamped on her memorial profile. He coldly commented, "Karma has a way of leveling the playing field." In 2024, officers paired with a documentary team that wanted to further investigate the case. They visited Fred, who was now back in the States. At 82, Fred was confined to a wheelchair. Although Fred's new wife let officers in, Fred did not want to talk. Al Felian, the original detective on the case, reopened the files and went through everything with a fresh perspective. Nothing was new. Despite this, The team believed they had gathered sufficient evidence to present the case to the district attorney. Brian Linder, Derby's brother, shared that their mother would have been very relieved. Earlier in 2024, Racine PD was given a tip that Fred, who is a convicted felon, was illegally in possession of firearms. They had a search warrant for his rental properties. Police searched Fred's home on March 28, 2024. They recovered 4 handguns and 2 tasers. They also recovered a pair of bolt cutters that were identical to the ones found at the crime scene in 1987. It was identical to a pair he bought a month after Derby's demise. It was illegal for him to own firearms. As a result of this investigation, an arrest warrant was issued. Fred was arrested at one of his properties that same day. He was charged with first-degree engagement in premeditated unlawful slaying, 4 counts of possession of a firearm by a felon, and 2 counts of possession of electronic weapons. At 82 years old, Fred could face the remainder of his life in prison. 37 years later, Derby was finally going to get justice. The Racine PD held a press conference on April 5 to share the news. On Wednesday, April 10, 2024, Fred pleaded not guilty to the case in Racine County Circuit Court. He is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by the law. Prosecutors asked for a $1 million bail for Fred. The court commissioner approved $50,000 cash and a $50,000 signature bond. Fred provided the $50,000 cash and was subsequently released. Racine County District Attorney Patricia Hansen emphasized the importance of linking Fred and his belongings to the crime and its timing. Investigators noted that there were no significant new developments in the case, but highlighted a recent shift in perspective by 2 detectives. District Attorney Patricia Hansen stated that there was enough circumstantial evidence to proceed with the trial. She emphasized the need to present the evidence in court. Derby's family expressed their desire for justice. They acknowledged the toll the situation had taken on them. When news channels knocked on Fred's door for comment, he did not respond. District Attorney Hansen feared he might flee, given his ties to the Philippines. As a result, he had to surrender his passport. Derby's brother expressed his disappointment in the system, but also an amount of relief. Ellie Schmidt, aunt of Derby, said, "I do know I speak for the entire family in expressing deep gratitude to everyone who made it possible for us to be standing here today." She also said, "Ideally, it would be my sister Ruth standing here. She fought so hard and for so long to get justice for her daughter's case." Racine County Detective Todd Lauer said that we have asked ourselves that question many times. Why? Why not? Years ago, the case was always there. We were able to present the case in a clear and straightforward manner, allowing a jury to weigh the evidence and reach a verdict. However, Racine, being a small town, lacked the resources for a more in-depth investigation and follow-ups. Additionally, the grand jury required more substantial evidence than what was initially available in order to move forward. Despite overwhelming evidence pointing to Fred, his means, motive, and opportunity to end Derby's life, it took 37 years for justice to finally take shape. While Fred remarried, had a son with Lola, and watched his grandchildren grow, Derby's life was cruelly cut short in an act of vengeance. A status conference for the case is set for July 12, 2024. Moving on to the next mystery. The notion that we are not alone in the universe has inspired countless science fiction stories and fueled numerous conspiracy theories. Given the vastness of space, the likelihood of extraterrestrial life, perhaps even more advanced than us, seems high. But if intelligent aliens do exist, why haven't they made contact? Biopsychologist Dr. Gordon Gallup proposes that while alien life is plausible, the reason we have yet to hear from them is that they might be actively avoiding us, fearing humans as a violent and dangerous species. Dr. Gallup, a researcher at the University of Albany, argues that humanity's history of aggression, warfare, and environmental destruction could serve as a warning sign to advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. If these beings are capable of observing us, they might see no reason to reveal themselves. He describes humans as inherently violent, citing our ongoing conflicts as evidence that we pose a significant risk. According to Gallup, if intelligent life exists elsewhere, they may perceive humanity as a threat and choose to remain hidden to avoid potential dangers. Dr. Gallup's argument was published in the Journal of Astrobiology, where he did not hold back in highlighting humanity's destructive impact on the planet and society. He made it clear that Earth is far too chaotic and harmful to be an attractive destination for extraterrestrial visitors. His perspective suggests that if intelligent life does exist elsewhere, they are unlikely to make contact with us. Gallup's theory that humans are scaring aliens away adds a new dimension to previous warnings about extraterrestrial encounters. Similar concerns were famously voiced by the late astrophysicist Stephen Hawking. While Hawking agreed that intelligent alien life likely exists, he criticized the assumption that humans are the only advanced species in the universe, calling such a belief arrogant. However, unlike Gallup, he argued that it is humans, not aliens, who should be afraid. Hawking compared a potential alien arrival to Christopher Columbus reaching the Americas, an event that had devastating consequences for indigenous populations. He speculated that a far more advanced alien civilization might see Earth as a resource to exploit rather than a place to coexist peacefully. Whether one believes that an alien encounter would end disastrously for us or for them, both Gallup and Hawking seem to agree on one thing. Humanity should probably avoid actively seeking extraterrestrial contact. Moving on to the next mystery. Buzz Aldrin's legacy as one of the first humans to walk on the moon is well known, but his contributions to space exploration extend far beyond Apollo 11. He was not only a pioneer in lunar exploration, but also an advocate for future space missions, particularly those aimed at Mars. Aldrin has been a strong supporter of human space travel to the Red Planet, promoting concepts like reusable spacecraft and space tourism to push the boundaries of interplanetary exploration. One of his more intriguing statements came in a 2009 interview when he mentioned a mysterious monolith on Phobos, one of Mars' 2 moons. He described it as a very unusual structure on the small, irregularly shaped moon, which orbits Mars approximately every 7 hours. His remarks sparked speculation and curiosity, leading many to wonder whether this monolith is a natural formation or something more enigmatic. While NASA and other space agencies have not identified anything suggesting artificial origins, Phobos itself remains an object of scientific interest. Some researchers have proposed that its porous composition and odd surface features make it a prime candidate for further study. Aldrin's statement about the Phobos monolith continues to fuel debate, adding another layer of mystery to humanity's quest for knowledge about our celestial neighbors. The Phobos monolith is an object that has been proposed to exist on the surface of Phobos, which is one of the 2 small moons of Mars. The idea of a monolith on Phobos gained attention in the 1970s when the moon was first photographed up close by the Viking 1 and 2 spacecraft. The monolith was initially suggested to be a large artificial object, possibly created by an extraterrestrial civilization. However, subsequent high-resolution images and closer observations by more advanced spacecraft have only caused more questions to arise. Today, most scientists believe that the Phobos monolith is simply a natural geological feature, such as a large boulder or a rock formation, that appears unusually smooth and rectangular in shape due to erosion and other processes on the moon's surface. However, without going there and conducting experiments, some are of the belief that the mysterious object was placed there on purpose, noting that nothing in the surrounding area matches the strange object. The Phobos monolith mystery is amplified by the fact that Phobos is completely barren. Whilst Mars has an atmosphere and a weather system, Phobos sits silently in space with its solitary monolith pointing up towards the heavens. What's more is that Phobos is tiny compared to the grand scale of the universe, making the sight of something so massive atop of a small celestial body even more creepy. The effects of erosion are common for strange discoveries on other planets. Mars and its moons have long been the focus of curiosity and speculation, with many unusual formations fueling theories about past extraterrestrial activity. Features such as the Mars face, the Mars pyramid, and the so-called levitating spoon have captivated the public. Even though scientists largely attribute these to natural geological processes and the human tendency to recognize familiar patterns, known as pareidolia. Despite all the intrigue surrounding Mars, its moon Phobos remains relatively unexplored. The Phobos Reconnaissance and International Mars Exploration (PRIME) mission, proposed by Optech and the Mars Institute, aimed to change that by sending a lander to investigate the moon's surface and analyze its geology. However, the mission has yet to secure funding, and no concrete plans exist to move it forward. Buzz Aldrin's comments about the Phobos monolith continue to stir interest. When discussing the potential mission, he cryptically remarked, "When people find out about that, they are going to say, 'Who put that there?'" His words have fueled speculation about the nature of the monolith, with some questioning whether it is an unusual rock formation or something more enigmatic. While mainstream scientists believe it to be a natural feature, its precise origin remains uncertain, leaving the door open for further investigation, if funding and interest ever align. Moving on to the next mystery. Charles confided in Ruth that he had been working as an undercover agent for the U.S. Treasury Department. He claimed that he was entangled in a web of high-stakes dealings involving organized crime and money laundering, making him a target. According to Charles, he had been abducted and tortured but had managed to escape, fearing that if he went to the police, their entire family would be in grave danger. For the next 2 months, Charles lived in a state of paranoia. He took extra security precautions, wore a bulletproof vest, and warned his wife that if anything happened to him, it would not be a suicide. Then, on June 18, 1977, Charles vanished again. This time, he did not return home. 9 days later, his body was discovered in the Arizona desert, 40 miles west of Tucson. He had been shot in the back of the head with his own .357 Magnum revolver. Strangely, there were no fingerprints on the weapon. Authorities also found a $2 bill clipped inside his underwear, covered in cryptic handwritten notes with biblical references and a list of names. Additionally, his car contained several odd items, including a pair of sunglasses that did not belong to him and a note with directions to a border town in Mexico. Despite the bizarre circumstances, law enforcement ruled his death a suicide, a conclusion his family strongly disputed. His wife maintained that he had been murdered because of his knowledge of illegal financial operations. To this day, the case of Charles C. Morgan remains one of Arizona's strangest unsolved mysteries, leaving more questions than answers. He had been employed as a covert operative, working undercover for the U.S. Treasury Department for a period spanning 2 to 3 years. However, he did not elaborate further, mentioning only that his captors had forcibly taken away his Treasury identification. Disturbingly, 2 months subsequent to his initial disappearance, he once again vanished without a trace. It was after a hiatus of 9 days that Ruth found herself at the receiving end of an enigmatic phone call from a mysterious woman who conveyed the cryptic message, "Chuck is all right," and abruptly terminated the call. The inexplicable reference to Ecclesiastes 12:1-8 added another layer of intrigue to an already perplexing situation. 2 days elapsed following the enigmatic phone call precisely on June 18th, when Charles was finally discovered lifeless. The resting place lay 40 miles to the west of Tucson, adjacent to his abandoned vehicle. The discovery revealed that Charles had met a tragic fate, having suffered a pistol wound to the back of his head, inflicted by none other than his own firearm. What further perplexed investigators was the fact that he was found wearing a bulletproof vest adorned with a belt buckle cunningly concealing a hidden knife and a holster that once housed his weapon. The intriguing twist in this already enigmatic tale unfolded with the presence of a pair of sunglasses at the scene, conspicuously not belonging to the deceased. As the investigation delved deeper, Charles's car became the focal point of scrutiny. By meticulously combing through its contents, authorities unearthed an assortment of weaponry and a substantial stockpile of ammunition, leaving little doubt as to his preparedness for unforeseen circumstances. However, the perplexities did not end there. The car itself had undergone modifications, ingeniously allowing it to be unlocked from the fender. This detail not only added to the mystique surrounding Charles's demise, but also hinted at a deliberate attempt to obfuscate his intentions or perhaps protect valuable possessions. Adding to the bizarre chain of events, a startling discovery was made on the rear seat of the vehicle, a tooth belonging to Morgan neatly wrapped in a white handkerchief. The inexplicable nature of this find left investigators puzzled as it presented more questions than answers. In a twist that seemed to border on the surreal, a peculiar item was also discovered, an elusive $2 bill. On its surface, several Spanish surnames were scrawled, capturing the attention of those engaged in the investigation. Attached to the bill was a meticulously pinned map of the border area encompassing the regions between Tucson and Mexico, specifically leading to Robles Junction and Felicity. Ruth's insistence that her husband was murdered was not unfounded. Several unsettling events followed his death. Shortly after Charles was buried, Ruth received a mysterious phone call from an unidentified woman who referred to herself as Green Eyes. She cryptically stated, "Chuck is all right now. Ecclesiastes 12, the truth will be revealed." Then, without explanation, she hung up. Even more disturbing was that, in the weeks leading up to his disappearance, Charles had confided in Ruth that he was working against powerful criminal organizations. He warned her that if anything ever happened to him, she should not believe any claims that he had taken his own life. He also hinted at the existence of a secret ledger, proof of illegal money laundering operations, that he had supposedly hidden. However, no such evidence was ever found. Further deepening the mystery, multiple reports surfaced of men in government-style suits showing up at the Morgan home, searching through Charles's documents and belongings without explanation. Some investigators and journalists have speculated that Charles had uncovered something too dangerous, perhaps exposing high-profile figures involved in organized crime, corruption, or even covert government operations. Despite the suspicious circumstances, missing evidence, and cryptic clues, law enforcement refused to reopen the case, maintaining that Charles's death was a suicide. To this day, the truth behind Charles C. Morgan's demise remains unknown, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions, conspiracy theories, and speculation. Moving on to the next mystery. Adding to the intrigue, this was not the first time mysterious aerial phenomena had been observed over Popocatépetl. Over the years, countless videos and images have emerged showing bright orbs, cigar-shaped craft, and fast-moving lights darting in and out of the volcano's crater. One of the most famous incidents occurred in 2012, when a massive, cylindrical object was captured by a live television broadcast, seemingly entering the volcano at an incredible speed. The footage went viral, sparking debates among scientists, UFO researchers, and skeptics alike. Some suggest that these anomalies could be military or experimental aircraft, possibly using the volcano as a testing zone. However, the high altitude, unpredictable weather, and extreme conditions around the volcano make it an unlikely site for human operations. Others argue that natural explanations, such as optical illusions, drones, or camera distortions, could account for the strange sightings. Despite these theories, the frequency, consistency, and diversity of sightings have fueled speculation that Popocatépetl may be more than just an active volcano. Some believe that it could be hiding an underground base, either of extraterrestrial origin or a classified human project. Ancient legends of the Aztecs and other indigenous groups also speak of divine beings and sky gods associated with the mountain, adding a historical layer to the modern mystery. As the sightings continue, experts remain divided. But one thing is clear. Popocatépetl remains one of the most enigmatic and closely watched locations on Earth, drawing attention not just for its volcanic activity, but for the secrets it may hold. It's incredibly clear to the point where we can make out details. One resident who lives close to the volcano said the following: "I'm not surprised to see something like this." And what many people don't realize is that this volcano in Mexico probably has the most activity in the country when it comes to strange aircrafts. I've heard stories of big aircraft hovering above the volcano only to then be seen flying directly into it. On the other hand, I've heard people say this area is used for testing out new technology, but I don't think this is the answer, because why would you do this in an area that has high surveillance? There's webcams everywhere, and there's always people watching. End quote. Another person said the following: "The shape of this thing is incredible. It almost reminds me of the Predator ship. This has to be one of the clearest photographs that I've seen from this volcano. I guess the only thing is you can't see the other signs which would help give us a better understanding of the shape of this thing." The object appeared to hover motionless for several minutes before vanishing at an incredible speed. We have reviewed the footage and found no clear explanation for what was seen. This statement only added fuel to the ongoing debate about the mysterious lights and crafts frequently observed near Popocatépetl. Some skeptics argue that drone activity, commercial flights, or even natural phenomena such as ball lightning or meteors could explain the sightings. However, others believe that the sheer volume of reports, combined with the clear footage captured by multiple sources, suggests something beyond conventional explanations. Another peculiar factor is the entry and exit behavior of these objects. In multiple documented instances, objects have been seen diving directly into the volcano's crater or emerging from within, leading to wild speculation about underground structures or even hidden bases beneath the volcano. The idea of extraterrestrial or advanced civilizations using volcanoes as energy sources or secret locations is a concept that has been discussed among UFO researchers for years. Despite the ongoing speculation, scientists have not conducted any dedicated research on these anomalies, dismissing them as misidentifications or camera artifacts. Yet, for the locals who have witnessed these strange occurrences with their own eyes, the mystery remains very real. Whether these sightings are extraterrestrial, secret technology, or a misunderstood natural phenomenon, Popocatépetl has secured its place as one of the world's most enigmatic locations, attracting both curious researchers and skeptical scientists alike. A mysterious flying object was captured by the journalist Carlos Clement during the period of activity that happened on March 27th. The images show the objects flying near over 3 kilometers high. To make the shot, the journalist of the team of conductor Jamie Mustin occupied a camera of 3,000 millimeters. The journalist toured the area that was impacted by the volcanic activity, and the material would serve for the broadcast of the Third Millennium news programs. When we were doing a photographic survey in the area of this colossal fire, in one of our 4 images the presence of an unidentified object was captured in an accidental way. When we were observing, we realized they were passing by at high speeds at a distance, and that we could not identify the object. However, in this photograph, we clearly captured one of these objects near the volcano. Without doubt, this is one of the clearest pictures of this type of mysterious objects that have been taken near the volcano. Others have said that these objects could be a natural phenomena like ball lightning. Ball lightning is the strange occurrence of when the conditions appear to be just right, and the static discharge of a normal thunderstorm creates what appears to be floating balls of pure lightning and energy. These puzzling occurrences of ball lightning not only form near-perfect spheres, but also move unpredictably across the sky, often leading to mistaken reports of mysterious sightings. However, many remain skeptical of this explanation, believing that something much more enigmatic is at play. Locals near the volcano have reported strange objects appearing in the skies above nearby cities for years, and intriguingly, military presence tends to follow these sightings. This pattern has fueled speculation that these objects may be connected to something far beyond conventional understanding. What are your thoughts on these fascinating photographs? What do you believe these objects are, and why do you think they are drawn to this volcano? Share your opinions and theories in the comments section below. It helps grow our community as we continue exploring these unsolved mysteries. Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe for more intriguing content. Moving on to the next mystery. On January 5, 2010, a high school student uploaded a video titled Fourth Dimension Explained by a High School Student. With an impressive 36 million views to date, it remains one of the most popular videos on the topic. The video captivated audiences with its compelling presentation, featuring a young individual whose unexpectedly deep voice and clear explanations broke down a highly complex concept, surpassing even the abilities of many science educators. After a long hiatus, the creator, known as Hack Guy, returned to YouTube, shifting his focus to thought-provoking discussions on socioeconomic issues. His deep understanding of these topics, far beyond his years, resonated with viewers, and his 10-video series accumulated millions of views, securing his place in internet history. However, without warning, he abruptly stopped creating content. His final upload, posted on December 20th, 2013, offered no indication that it would be his last. His sudden disappearance led to widespread speculation, and while fans initially held on to hope for his return, they eventually had to accept that their beloved young philosopher was unlikely to come back. He explained during the video that a one-dimensional world only allows for linear movement, while a two-dimensional world allows for movement in any direction, and a three-dimensional world has depth, length, and height. Understanding the fourth dimension requires understanding how two-dimensional beings perceive objects and how we perceive objects in three dimensions. A two-dimensional organism does not perceive anything happening to it as it grows and moves away, but we can see it from a three-dimensional perspective and perceive it as expanding. After his disappearance, many questioned whether he had made a breakthrough during his research and that this led to his disappearance. However, on September 4, 2019, after nearly 6 years of being absent, Hat Guy reappeared, appearing older, but with a voice that was still recognizable. In a video, Hat Guy shares the story behind his abrupt departure from YouTube and provides an update on his personal and professional life. He reveals that the main reason for his sudden silence was simply that he had forgotten his password, expressing frustration at being unable to recover it. Additionally, he discloses that he is on the autism spectrum, explaining that his diagnosis has significantly shaped his identity and experiences. Hat Guy explains that his priorities shifted toward focusing on his health, leading him to explore alternative medicine. He also made the decision to leave college, believing that the academic environment encouraged conformity rather than independent thought. Since then, he has dedicated himself to developing his own comprehensive theory on achieving optimal health. Today, Hat Guy lives with his wife, continuing his personal journey. His return to the spotlight reignited interest in his early work, inspiring many to research the fourth dimension. This concept, deeply rooted in theoretical physics and mathematics, presents a fascinating challenge to our understanding of the universe. While we navigate a three-dimensional world defined by length, width, and height, the idea of a fourth spatial dimension opens up a realm of possibilities beyond our ordinary perception. These are the dimensions we can perceive and navigate. However, scientific and mathematical theories often delve into the prospect of additional dimensions beyond our perception. The fourth dimension is one such concept that has been widely debated and discussed. In the context of classical physics, the fourth dimension is generally referred to as time. This idea was first proposed by Albert Einstein in his groundbreaking theory of special relativity. Einstein presented time as an inseparable companion to the three spatial dimensions, creating a unified four-dimensional space-time continuum. In this concept, the three spatial dimensions outline where something is, while the fourth dimension of time establishes when it is. This revolutionary idea fundamentally changed our understanding of the universe. It suggested that space and time are not independent entities, but are interconnected and influenced by mass and energy. This theoretical approach has been remarkably successful in explaining a vast array of physical phenomena, from the behavior of black holes to the expansion of the universe. On the other hand, in the realm of speculative physics and mathematics, the fourth dimension can be viewed as an additional spatial dimension, one that we can't perceive but can mathematically demonstrate. This perspective emerges particularly in the framework of string theory, which postulates the existence of up to 11 dimensions. The hypothetical four-dimensional space, known as hyperspace, is beyond our comprehension as we can only visualize three dimensions. The concept of a fourth spatial dimension presents interesting implications. For example, a hypothetical four-dimensional being could, in theory, see all sides of a three-dimensional object simultaneously, much like we can perceive all aspects of a two-dimensional drawing at once. However, it is important to recognize that our understanding of the fourth dimension, whether temporal or spatial, remains largely theoretical and grounded in mathematics. To date, there is no empirical evidence confirming the existence of a fourth spatial dimension. Despite this, its exploration has significantly contributed to advancements in theoretical physics, expanding the limits of human knowledge. Beyond science, the concept of the fourth dimension serves as a powerful tool for thought experiments, inspiring artists, writers, and filmmakers to explore themes of higher dimensions and parallel universes. At present, whether viewed as time or an additional spatial parameter, the fourth dimension remains a complex and captivating subject of theoretical inquiry. It challenges the boundaries of human comprehension, offering intriguing possibilities about the fundamental nature of reality. While still rooted in abstract mathematics and physics, the idea continues to fuel scientific exploration, philosophical discussions, and artistic innovation. Moving on to the next mystery. A missing black hole with 10 billion solar masses, an anomaly that defies expectations. When it comes to space, black holes are among the most widely recognized cosmic phenomena. They are frequently depicted in books, movies, and television, captivating our imagination with their immense gravitational pull. Despite our limited understanding, astronomers believe that nearly every galaxy harbors a supermassive black hole at its core, relentlessly drawing in surrounding matter. Given their colossal size and influence, one would assume that tracking black holes would be straightforward. Yet, against all logic, a black hole of this magnitude has seemingly vanished without a trace. About a decade ago, Dr. Mark Postman, a member of the Space Telescope Science Institute, was surveying surrounding galaxies with the famous Hubble Space Telescope. While surveying, Dr. Postman found a supergiant galaxy now referred to as a 2261 BCG with no black hole at the center. Indeed, the finding was exceedingly strange. An expert of galactic nuclei at the National Optical Infrared Astronomy Research Laboratory in Tucson, Arizona, Todd Lauer, added that the absence of the black hole was really unusual. According to everything we know about black holes, this supergiant galaxy must have one at its center. This black hole is expected to house 10 billion solar masses, while the black hole at the center of our own galaxy, the Milky Way, has only 4 billion. It seems impossible and unfathomable that a black hole of this size has simply evaded notice or attention. So what exactly is happening? Using the ideas postulated by three astronomers, Mitchell Bagelman, Martin Rees, and Robert Blanford, one theory says that a 2261 BCG originally had two black holes that eventually combined and turned into nothing. Of course, if the burst was unequal on both sides, the impact could have sent one of the black holes flying through the galaxy. However, upon further analysis of Able 2261 BCG, scientists uncovered something intriguing. The diffuse core of the galaxy contains 4 small knots of light, leading some to speculate that the missing black hole's gravitational influence may still be at play, keeping them in place. Sarah Burke-Spoler of West Virginia University led a research team to investigate these mysterious knots. Their findings revealed that 2 of them were likely smaller galaxies residing within the larger galaxy. However, Hubble's resolution was insufficient to determine the nature of the remaining 2, leaving their true identity unknown. Fortunately, with the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope in late 2021, astronomers now have a powerful new tool capable of providing detailed observations. They are hopeful that Webb will be able to unravel the mystery of these 4 knots and, perhaps, finally reveal the whereabouts of the missing black hole. While it may seem impossible for a black hole containing 10 billion solar masses to remain undetected for so long, this case serves as a reminder that the universe still holds countless secrets waiting to be uncovered. Moving on to the next mystery. Jim Sullivan, known as Sully to his loved ones, was a talented, visionary, and passionate rock and roll musician. His evocative, introspective lyrics and strong ties to American folk music were suddenly cut short in March 1975 when he mysteriously disappeared without a trace. His vanishing left both those who knew him and future listeners of his music searching for answers. This investigation into Jim Sullivan's disappearance and the mystery surrounding the La Mesa Motel in the New Mexico desert seeks to offer a clearer explanation through tangible evidence and situational analysis. Jim was born on August 13, 1940, in the Linda Vista neighborhood of San Diego, California. The son of 2 Irish-American farmers, his parents had migrated from Nebraska to Southern California at the peak of the Dust Bowl in the late 19th century in pursuit of work in the defense industry. In the liner notes of his debut LP, Jim reflected on his childhood, recalling his upbringing in a government housing project alongside other Okies and Arkies. These early experiences fueled his deep appreciation for American folk culture. Inspired by the local blues scene, Jim eventually ventured into music himself. As a teenager, he grew into an impressive athlete, standing at 6 feet 3 inches tall in high school. While serving as the quarterback for his school's football team, he never missed an opportunity to play his Sears Silvertone guitar and amplifier, a dream setup for a 16-year-old aspiring rock and roller. Socially charismatic and well-liked, Jim, who preferred the nickname Sully among his friends, built strong connections and even met his future wife, Barbara, in junior high. After finishing school together, Barbara and Jim married. Not long before, Jim joined a classic rock band called The Survivors, a staple in the San Diego music scene fronted by Jim's sister-in-law, Kathy Doran. Jim and Barbara had their first son together, Chris, and when he was 7 years old, the flourishing family moved out to Los Angeles to continue pursuing music and expand their promising horizon. Soon after, Baba received a job at Capitol Records in Hollywood, while Jim dedicated his free time to fine-tuning his guitar skills and making connections within the entertainment industry. He began playing at bigger establishments around the area such as the Lighthouse and Lindy Opera House. Jim's true hotspot was in Malibu, however, as a celebrity-filled pub called The Raft, where he forged relationships with fellow artists like Farrah Fawcett, Lee Marvin, and Harry Dean Stanton. By 1969, Jim's friends convinced him to record an album and helped him raise the appropriate funding to produce such a project. This first album turned out to be his recording debut, a folk rock endeavor titled UFO. The lyrics originated from spiritual and mystical ideas believed in by Jim, and the recording process included 20 other musicians who contributed a truly ethereal sound in addition to its country music roots. Not being much of a promoter himself, Jim let his indie record label, Monty Records, advertise UFO. The word circulated through a few unknown music circles and was rumored to be a topic out in Nashville, where Johnny Cash's manager was thought to be an interested party. Even Jim's wife, Barbara, attempted to use her connections at Capitol Records to secure a big name like Beach Boys producer, Nick Venet, to pick up Jim as an artist, but no one took the bait. Unfortunately, the album never caught fire despite Jim and his friends' enthusiasm, and UFO was left for a small reissue at the Century City label. 2 years later, Jim threw together additional resources to release a second album, this time a self-titled project called Jim Sullivan through Playboy Records, completely unrelated to the Playboy brand. Again, the album gained little traction, theorized to be the result of heavy production values that covered up the clever lyrics written by Jim. In the end, after the two projects were a relative failure, Jim and his wife Barbara struggled to get back on their feet at full force and turned to alcohol, where their marriage began to crumble as their careers dwindled into darkness. Years passed before Jim decided that his time in Los Angeles was nearing a stalemate and decided to relocate his musical endeavors to Nashville, Tennessee, where his former bandmate and sister, Kathy Doran, resided. Jim packed up his belongings in his old Volkswagen Bug and told his family to wait and see if he made it big before coming with him. He didn't hesitate and drove out east, making it as far as Santa Rosa, New Mexico before getting pulled over by State Highway Patrol for swerving on the road due to fatigue. To rest for the upcoming journey, Jim headed into town and checked into La Mesa Motel, called his wife from a nearby payphone, and brought a handle of liquor at a local store. What preceded is unknown because later that night, Jim Sullivan was last seen walking into the New Mexico desert away from civilization, into the dusty abyss only to vanish and never be heard from again. Jim Sullivan's journey truly began in 1968 when he uprooted his family from the perfectly weathered San Diego, California to the heart of the entertainment industry's playground, Los Angeles. He, Barbara, and Chris left to engage with the world of rock and roll and dedicated his life to his craft, a true love with music and mysticism. From 1968 to the early parts of 1970, the Sullivan family makes a name for themselves. Barbara secures employment at the legendary Capitol Records in Hollywood, while Jim shares his talents with the rest of Southern California. Jim links up with movie stars and fellow musicians, combining a natural gravitas with pure artistic skills. He makes many friends and frequently plays at packed houses at the Raft Pub near Malibu. In 1969, Jim's album titled UFO was released to a bit of critical acclaim, and all signs point to stardom for the folk musician and his family. However, as the dog days of 1970 came and went, Jim's lyrical prowess loses its luster with LA heavyweights, and he turns to smaller record labels to produce another album. Sadly, The borderline experimental soundtrack never takes off like he hoped, and Jim is left to return to play in the dimly lit clubs he once gained his footing in. Following the track marks of failure and losing the glimmer of success that Hollywood once brought upon the Sullivan family, both Jim and Barbara turned to alcohol, and between 1970 to 1974, they see their once sturdy marriage begin to crumble. In the late winter months of 1975, Jim decides to go against the grain and move out east to Nashville, Tennessee, in hopes to restart his career as a musician in a prominent folk and country music hotspot. Jim and Barbara discuss the family aspect of the proposed transition, and they agree that she and their son, Chris, will wait to see if Jim captures success before joining him on the cross-country relocation. So on the morning of March 4th, 1975, Jim packs personal belongings into his old Volkswagen Bug and says goodbye to the town he once dreamed of sparking stardom in. Between noon and 1 p.m. later that day, Jim physically departs from his family in Los Angeles, hops on the National Highway, and heads east on Route 66. After 15 long and exhausting hours on the road, Jim was pulled over by police in the early morning hours of March 5th, around 3 or 4 a.m., for unintentionally swerving while driving near Santa Rosa, New Mexico. Following the traffic stop, officers brought him to the Santa Rosa police station for a sobriety test. He successfully proved that he had no alcohol or drugs in his system and passed the exam. The police concluded that Jim was simply fatigued after driving 900 miles across 3 state lines and advised him to find a place to rest. Later that morning, he checked into the La Mesa Motel, located just off Route 66 in Santa Rosa. Despite securing a room, Jim never unloaded his belongings, and at some point, he left the key locked inside before departing. Sometime later, he walked to a nearby liquor store and purchased a handle of vodka. Whether he consumed it immediately remains unclear, but he was later seen getting back into his Volkswagen and driving around Santa Rosa. By the afternoon of March 5th, Jim had driven to a ranch about 26 miles southeast of town, a property reportedly owned by the Giannetti family. What transpired at the remote Giannetti ranch remains a mystery. However, it's been reported that Jim drove up to the nearby road where an older Italian woman who spoke little English met him with some ranch hands. When she asked him if he had a problem, Jim replied, "No to you." Other reports mention Jim driving all the way up to the ranch house and knocking on the door, much to the confusion of Mrs. Giannetti. Regardless of what exactly conspired, Jim leaves his vehicle behind on the ranch that evening of March 5th, 1975, and walks off the property towards the endless desert. This is the last confirmed sighting of Jim Sullivan. In the next couple of days following March 5th, after Jim's communication ceases, his disappearance is investigated by Santa Rosa authorities. They trace his final steps around town, ending at the Giannetti family ranch. They find his Volkswagen Bug off on the side with the doors locked and the engine completely dead. Inside are Jim's personal artifacts, including his wallet, his guitar, and a bunch of old musical gear and personal audio tapes. Nobody on the property knew where Jim wandered off to, only that he was seen walking away from the vehicle. A road worker who had been laboring near the vanishing site that day, a man named Sammy Chavez, later recalls seeing the Volkswagen sitting in the middle of a dirt road. He says, "It was quite a strange sight, and when he headed back the other way after his shift, all of the doors on the Bug had been opened where police were searching." On March 8th, the Volkswagen is towed away from the Giannetti family ranch and is assumedly taken into custody. However, what happens to the Volkswagen Bug is still unknown to this day. In the preceding 2 weeks of the investigation, countless law enforcement officials searched the nearby New Mexico desert for any sign of Jim, including the New Mexico State Police, the Santa Rosa Police, and multiple volunteer chains. The Sullivan family quickly make their way to Santa Rosa to aid in the search as well. News stations and publications all around write stories and release missing person notices to help spread awareness. However, no leads come to fruition. Around the same time that the Jim Sullivan disappearance is investigated by local and state police, the sheriff of Santa Rosa retires, while the Giannetti family moves to Hawaii. Neither the sheriff nor the Giannettis would ever be interviewed or questioned after those events. At the end of March, investigators discover a badly decomposing body 8 miles west of Las Cruces, a New Mexico town almost 250 miles away from Santa Rosa. The body in question does have a striking resemblance to Jim despite the erosion and is initially thought to be his corpse. Unfortunately, a few weeks later, a local newspaper headlines reports that the body was indeed not Jim Sullivan and that no other leads were available at the time. 40 years later, not a shred of evidence or trace leading to Jim is found by either professional investigators or amateur sleuths. In 2010, a music producer named Matt Sullivan with no relation to Jim from Light in the Attic Records heard about Jim's puzzling legend and set out to find answers. While he was able to talk to some people who vaguely knew Jim from his days in Los Angeles, he was unable to crack the case of his disappearance. Although Matt was able to remaster Jim's 2 rock and roll albums, resetting UFO as a cult classic and prized piece of art amongst fans who were equally as mystified by Jim Sullivan's disappearance as we are today. In the spellbinding case of Jim's disappearance, not many useful clues were unearthed. There were no security cameras at La Mesa Motel or official records of Jim interacting with anybody specific, either in town or at the ranch. There was no blood, no goodbye letter, and no footprints. However, investigators did find something of suspicion a few weeks into their manhunt. A major discovery that was thought to be the resolution: a decomposing body of a middle-aged man found abandoned in New Mexico desert. The body in question had multiple similarities at Jim. The corpse was of a man appearing to be in his 30s or 40s, standing at about 6 feet 2 inches. Both the body and Jim weighed about 180 pounds and sported a tattoo on their right forearms. They each had a mustache and a rough short beard. When this revelation was first announced through the New Mexico media, journalists and citizens alike were convinced it was the body of Jim Sullivan. Unfortunately, their certainty was short-lived when the same news outlets reported the body was that of someone else, meaning Jim was most likely still lost out in the world. There are a few curious details about this case point that don't add up. First and foremost, no official police announcement regarding the body or its identity was ever released to the public. Thus, neither the people at the time nor people now know exactly whose body was discovered that spring. The fact that both Jim and the corpse were of similar builds didn't raise any red flags. But taking into consideration the similar facial hair and tattoo were of the same length and location is borderline inconceivable. It raises many questions, biggest of which is if Jim's family ever identified the body. All the news reports stated was the body was later proved not to be that of Sullivan, but there's no official medical announcement or law enforcement comment on the matter. Sadly, DNA forensics weren't in the picture back in 1975 and wouldn't have been available to correctly ID the John Doe. Another difficult detail to comprehend is the land where police found the unidentified corpse. The body was in the desert outside of Las Cruces, New Mexico, the second largest city of the state found in the Missoula Valley. Mysteriously, Las Cruces is seated near the southern border of New Mexico, almost 250 miles away from Santa Rosa. So even if there was an identification error and the body was truly that of Jim, it would mean he had somehow traveled 250 miles by foot across barren desert in a different direction than where he was last seen and died quickly enough that his body would be decomposed past easy recognition. Neither scenario fully explains Jim Sullivan's disappearance, making the case a true catch-22 and leaving room for countless theories. Since that clear, sunny evening on March 5th, mystery has shrouded Jim's fate. With no eyewitness testimony or solid evidence, the possible conclusions to his story are endless, if there's even a conclusion at all. However, some theories hold intriguing connections to his friends, family, and brief time in Santa Rosa, involving everything from police corruption and ties to the Chicago Mafia to supernatural abduction and even a staged farewell. First and foremost, we must examine the role of local law enforcement in Jim's time in Santa Rosa. It's possible that upon arriving in the small New Mexico town, Jim unintentionally crossed the wrong people, perhaps by saying something that upset authorities or witnessing something he wasn't meant to see. What is certain is that Jim had at least one recorded interaction with law enforcement. He was stopped for swerving outside city limits and later brought to the station for alcohol testing. However, the only confirmed detail about his time there is that he passed the test and was released. Whether he was coerced into staying longer or mistreated while inside the station remains unknown, but not outside the realm of possibility. While Jim was known to be calm and easygoing, his imposing stature could have led officers to view him as a potential threat. Alternatively, frustration over the situation may have caused Jim to react in a way that escalated tensions, either at the traffic stop or during his time in custody. Regardless, without knowing what truly happened with the officers, it's impossible to rule out a situation escalating into chaos. So if Jim had made himself an enemy with local authorities, it's likely the police were called when Jim traveled to the Giannetti family ranch with a handle of vodka. Jim could have been drunk and in a bad mood from the previous encounter, and trespassing on a private property as an unknown figure could have caused Mrs. Giannetti to phone the police. When police arrived and saw it was Jim once again, they could have taken action into their own hands. It's possible they let Jim go off on his own into the desert and waited until he was gone to pick him back up. On the other hand, it's also possible the police never interacted with him a second time, instead finding him dead in the desert after the fact, and instead of investigating the cause of death, moved his corpse out of Santa Rosa and ignoring the situation. This would give explanation to why the John Doe corpse looks so similar to Jim's appearance, yet was discovered 250 miles away from his last sighting. These police tamperings would also explain another peculiar and disturbing anomaly recently found in the case. NamUs, or the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, is a database of all the people who have vanished or died without an identity. It covers the entire United States and is a brilliant tool in keeping track of DNA, police records, and real-time updates. However, missing from the NamUs database is Jim Sullivan. While it's not exactly a major surprise, seeing as though this case is 40 years cold, it did motivate John Larden to look into the error. But what Larden found is the most interesting fact of all. There is no official missing persons case filed in New Mexico either by state police or by Santa Rosa law enforcement. There are no mentions of the case in police archives and no departmental documentation about a search for Jim Sullivan either in 1975 or otherwise. Now, while this can simply be explained by the possibility that Barbara or any other member of the Sullivan family never filed an actual missing persons report, the fact of the matter is, besides newspaper articles, there is no written communication providing a search even existed. 45 years ago, in small community or not, zero police profiles is more suspicious than coincidental, hinting that local authorities may have had a piece of the pie in whatever crime or cover-up was committed, not to mention the fact that the local Santa Rosa retired and moved away right after the investigation began. Another theory centers on the vague relevance of the Giannetti family and their rumored connections to Chicago crime and mafia ties. A few citizens near the Santa Rosa area claimed the Giannetti family had a history with illicit activities and were operating under direction from powerful people in a Chicago gang organization. Now, whether or not this was the actual dealings of an Italian mafia or just folklore turned into hyperbole is unknown, but with multiple claims that the Giannetti family were known for bad behavior, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they dealt with Jim's arrival using illegal means. If Jim truly did trespass on the Giannetti family ranch and disrespected Mrs. Giannetti, it makes sense that another member of the family or one of their colleagues came around and took care of Jim, who could have been drunk and insubordinate. If they indeed killed Jim and had experience with that sort of thing, they knew how to dispose of a body and leave no trace, or they planted the body down in Las Cruces and paid off the proper authorities to sway public knowledge. Now, why an organized crime family would drop a body off in the same state and general area of the murder is nonsensical. So if the Giannetti family truly is responsible, they are probably the only ones with knowledge regarding Jim's exact location and what happened in the first place. It's worth noting that none of these claims can be confirmed nor denied with observable proof that Jim even made contact with the family. However, it should also be stated that the Giannettis packed up, left New Mexico, and moved to Hawaii at the same time the Santa Rosa sheriff retired, just as the hunt for Jim and relevant clues heated up. The last three stemming from homicidal origins is that Jim was actually running away from troubles stirred up in Los Angeles and got caught before he could escape. Jim became a socialite in LA, meeting many celebrities and fellow musicians as he performed at various clubs. One of his favorite places was the Raft, now called the Real Inn, where he played with the cream of the crop. He might have somewhere down the line fixed in with the wrong group of people at the raft or a similar joint, got desperate for money, and was unable to pay off his debts when his scheme reached a dead end. Thus, he packed up everything, asked his family to stay put, and made a run for it only to be caught up in the end. It would explain why he was so set on driving 15 hours, and then on the first day of his journey, pushed himself past his mental limit. Maybe after spending time at the police station, he knew his followers were hot on the trail, so he attempted to find solace at a local residence and ended up at the Genetti Ranch. When he was denied help, he knew it was the last straw, and his pursuers picked him up after a short chase. It would also explain why Jim booked a room at the motel, but never settled in, signaling he was either trying to stage his farewell or throw his pursuers off their tracks, unfortunately running into them anyway. The biggest evidence against this theory is that it's been told through the years by many known associates of Jim and his family that Jim avoided conflict at all costs and was quite soft-spoken. However, it still does take into consideration his turn towards alcohol and the pitfalls of broken dreams. We have reached out to the current owner of the Real Inn to see if they had any connections to employees still around from the days of the Raft Pub and Jim's playing circuit. Andy Leonard, the owner, informed us about a former bartender named Ralph O'Hara, who had extensive knowledge of the restaurant dating back to the 1950s. Unfortunately, further investigation revealed that Ralph O'Hara passed away in 2015, reducing the number of witnesses to Jim's time in Los Angeles. One widely discussed theory surrounding Jim suggests that his music, particularly his debut album UFO, achieved cult classic status due to speculation that he wandered into the New Mexico desert and encountered intelligent extraterrestrial beings. Whether he left willingly or was taken against his will, some believe Jim departed Earth with these otherworldly entities. These theories have led to deeper analysis of Jim's music, especially UFO, where his surreal lyrics and experimental soundscapes contribute to his distinctive artistic style. The eerie combination of sound and mysticism has convinced many that Jim possessed a profound understanding of extraterrestrial concepts. This has led some to speculate that Jim chose to leave Earth voluntarily, preferring a life beyond our planet rather than facing failure in the real world. While alien abduction theories are often met with skepticism, Jim's own family hasn't entirely dismissed the idea, believing it would align with his mystical beliefs and philosophies. However, in reality, UFO was more a product of creative expression than an actual communication with extraterrestrials. The album's title track is largely a metaphor, depicting a religious figure as an alien rather than providing any real evidence of contact with intergalactic beings. After piecing together the details of Jim Sullivan's disappearance and the circumstances surrounding it, arriving at a definitive conclusion remains nearly impossible, leaving the mystery as perplexing as ever. No theory can be ruled out with such little and conflicting testimonies from everyone involved, but one rarely discussed sequence sticks out a little more than the rest. We believe Jim fully intended to rekindle his music passion in Nashville when he left Los Angeles. But during his grueling 15-hour drive into New Mexico that ended with fatigue and external conflict, he turned back to the bottle and in a stupor walked out into the desert with the intention never to return again. It's important to remember what Jim's personal life was like in 1975. His marriage was on the brink, and two massive creative endeavors ended up as major flops, providing zero rewards to the struggle and artist experiences whilst chasing their dreams in the City of Angels. Combine the overall turmoil of American culture and the state of the world at the moment in time. Anxieties and anguish most likely took over Jim's emotions as he battled with the shrouds of darkness circling his family and career. Thus, Jim packed up all his belongings and set himself on a trail of redemption. When he couldn't weather the long-haul journey anymore, he was stopped by police and most likely stereotyped as an outsider, a tall, bulky man with a scraggly beard and leather jacket. After dealing with the mild aggravation of law enforcement, Jim purchased alcohol, the only comfort he knew anymore. Feeling as if the journey was insurmountable, he most likely pondered what he would do next in his motel room, eventually deciding to leave without notice. So he locked his key in his room, drove out to a place where his car would be found, and the trace would end, explaining the approximation to the Genetti Ranch. Drunk and disorientated, Jim probably stumbled out into the desert, letting go of life behind him and submitting himself to the unknown and undeniable shadow of deserted wilderness. What happened to Jim's body most likely remain a mystery, but taking into consideration the landscape, whatever he left behind was scavenged by wild animals or buried by a third party after he was found dusty in his demise. The area around Santa Rosa is also known for its unusual number of lakes and bodies of water, potential grounds for where Jim could have wandered off to and drowned him while drunk. Had he gotten far enough on foot, Jim could have also disappeared into the surrounding mountains, either dying in the hills or living off the land for a short while. It's unclear if the search efforts throughout the years included the myriad bodies of water or mountainous regions, and if they didn't, Jim's body could easily have decomposed. Many of those close to Jim claimed that he wouldn't have left on his own accord and not taken his guitar with him. However, if Jim was under the influence, his attachment to the instrument might never have crossed his mind. One of the most fascinating aspects to this conclusion is a statement made by Jim's former producer, Bob Ginter. Ginter said that one day, back during their rock and roll endeavors, in the early morning hours after a long night, the two men talked about what they would do if they had to disappear. Jim responded that he'd walk into the desert and never come back. It's easy to brush the statement off as coincidental, but even if it was just a subconscious desire, Jim had the thought to walk into the desert before he disappeared. And when factoring in Jim's addiction to the substance that brought forth subconscious feelings, it makes sense that he reconnected to the past ideation after drinking, turning to the New Mexico wilderness when all was lost. One of his more famous songs from the UFO album titled Jerome included the following lyrics: "A more natural pose I couldn't bear to see, and I hope that these people never visit me. It's my time to go. I just want the wind to blow my ashes until they're completely out of sight." Nevertheless, the story of Jim and the vanishing on March the 5th, 1975 has intrigued all who have discovered the enigma, either through his music or by chance. Some folks believe Jim could even still be alive. A woman by the name of Tracy Pierce worked at a foster home in the Eugene-Springfield, Oregon area about 30 years ago, helping tend to patients who needed a place to stay and care for serious brain injuries. She states that one of her patients back in the day bore a striking resemblance to Jim. Tracy also said, "He said he got beat up and left for dead in the desert. He crawled back to the road, and someone brought him to the hospital. He was paralyzed from the waist down, but would still get himself up every morning and get dressed. I thought he said it was Nevada, but it was almost 30 years ago. He was a nice guy, but kept to himself." We have reached out to Tracy for further comments, but have yet to hear back. Nonetheless, we must not forget Jim's unparalleled musical style and his remarkable talent for lyricism as we continue searching for answers in his absence. Many believe that, under the right circumstances and with a stronger support network, Jim could have risen to fame as a successful folk artist. His music has been given new life thanks to Light in the Attic Records and producer Matt Sullivan, who, despite having no relation to Jim, has written extensively about his legacy. Both of Jim's albums have been remastered, allowing listeners to experience his artistry anew. As you listen, picture Jim as a radiant spirit, embodying bold dreams and extraordinary talent. Remember his warm demeanor and optimistic nature, which helped transport audiences across the country into enchanting, melodic worlds. One day, the mysteries surrounding Jim Sullivan, the wandering musician, may finally be solved. Until then, his legacy will continue to thrive through creativity and imagination. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring these intriguing unsolved mysteries with me. If you found the video fascinating, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Unsolved Mystique for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries. Your support helps me bring you more compelling content. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or any mysteries you'd like me to cover next. See you in the next video.